The year is 2013, and everyone is talking about this crazy anime called Attack on Titan. And I am someone at this point in my life, and to be honest, now as well, who doesn't actually watch a lot of different anime. They just have a few anime that they love and stick to. But I thought to myself, you know what? I should really branch out. I'm going to check out this popular anime that everyone's raving about. And so I did. And I watched season 1, and I really enjoyed it, and I had a million questions. It set up a brilliant mystery of like what the Titans were, how this world came to be, and we received the news that we probably weren't going to be getting another season for quite some time. So I took to the manga, and I was like, I'll read the manga. That's what I'll do. And I got up to date with the manga, and all I had was more questions, and no answers in sight, and I got quite frustrated about that, so I said, you know what, I'm done, I'm out, I don't care anymore. I did, but I didn't want to admit it. Fast forward to earlier this year when part 1 of the finale came out, and everyone, once again, was raving about Attack on Titan, and I went, part 1 of the finale, you say? So, let me get this straight. Probably all of the things that I have burning questions about and have been quietly curious about for the better part of a decade now, they've probably been answered at this point, right? If we're in literally the finale, I'm probably safe to binge this thing. And that's what I did. And I had an absolutely fantastic time. I'm gonna, stop burying the lead here. I fucking love Attack on Titan. That being said, it's not perfect, but I still love it. I think the questions that the show sets us up with in season 1 get answered in a really interesting, unique, and adequate way, and then the show continues to spiral out of control in a way which doesn't feel like it's losing its identity, or it's, trying to be interesting and is running out of story, or any of the pitfalls of some other types of story which are a bit like this. I will say, having just watched the finale, I'm not sure it sticks the landing with quite as much grace as it could have, but overall, I am satisfied with Attack on Titan as a story. I think the message, we'll get to the end later in the video, but I think the message it was trying to tell maybe got a little bit lost in the sauce there. But what I love about Attack on Titan is that what it feels like is a deep exploration of a nihilistic viewpoint and a deconstruction as to why a lot of people's feelings, like nihilistic feelings about the world, are true, and B, why it is self-destructive to allow yourself to feel despair based on those feelings, if that makes sense. If I'm not making sense, just watch 4 seasons of this anime and you'll know what I mean, maybe. Maybe people take away different philosophical meanings from this show based on what they believe, but I am someone who very much can see the nihilistic, careless, chaotic nature of the universe, and I can also see the despair that people who believe in that nihilistic viewpoint are driven to, and the actions it causes them to take, and how destructive that can be. Not to get too lost in my own source here, that sounds weird, but I am someone who believes that we have to care in an uncaring universe, and I think while it takes a while to get to that point, Attack on Titan also kind of drives that message home. Nowhere is this more evident. Okay, I guess we are talking about the finale a bit here, my apologies, but nowhere is this more evident in the scene when Armin ends up in the pathways, I think it's called, that little weird dimension, and he's talking to Zeke, who is very much in the throes of nihilistic despair, talking about how the only point of life is to multiply. And then Armin finds a leaf in the sand which signifies and reminds him of the time he spent chasing leaves and racing to the tree on the hill as a kid, and how that didn't serve to multiply the human race. That was just a pointless endeavor, but it brought him so much joy and fulfillment. And then Zeke sees that leaf as the baseball that he threw to the scientist, his father figure, as a child, and he can relate to that feeling, and it kind of brings him out of his own nihilistic fervor. And I think that is one of the most poignant points that Attack on Titan tries to drive home over the course of its entire story. That being said, it doesn't have a happy ending. They don't reverse time. I was convinced that this was going to end with some kind of time loop and the start of the anime was also going to be its end, with Eren waking up, and it was going to be the story about breaking the cycle. But no, it's not that at all. In fact, if we are to go fully into talking about the finale and just blow this chronology right out of the water, the tragic part of Attack on Titan is that even after all of this bloodshed, after all of this death, after all of these lessons learned, after 80% of the population is literally trampled to death, they continue to wage wars against each other. I was slightly taken aback by the credit scene, and I think there is much to be said for the credit scene. I think the credit scene is one of the most important parts of this entire story, so hopefully you stuck around for that, but if you didn't, it's this this kind of timeline of Mikasa by Eren's grave, and then, you know, you see her friends pick her up, and then time goes by, and then you see her return there with a baby, with a husband, and then they leave and time goes by, and then you see her return as an old lady, and there's like a car, and you can see like there's been technological advancement, and then time goes by, and then you see she gets buried there next to him, and then time goes by, and then it's a city, like a modern city, and then it's like a futuristic city, and then like missiles drop, and then time goes by, and then it's a ruined post-apocalyptic city, and someone who is supposed to look like Mikasa's descendant, I believe, finds the tree where Eren was buried, and he walks inside it, very much mirroring Ymir walking inside the tree to find the weird alien symbiote thing which led to the entire Titan thing in the first place. And the general impression I get from that entire credit sequence is you just saw this entire cycle of suffering and lessons learned and death, and it happens again and again and again and again, and it is tragic, and it mirrors human history, and that is the part of the story that I don't like, but also have to agree with. I guess I do like it, I just don't like what it says about us as a species. I think Attack on Titan has every right to be called a masterpiece, given how deeply it dives into these themes of nihilism and the chaotic random nature of the universe and horrible, gruesome, pointless death and love and all of those things, and it weaves it into this narrative which you can't really surmise the point of in a Thoughts on Attack on Titan video. You know, I think that is one of the definitions, or one of my definitions of a masterpiece, is I can't really get the message across to you with my own words about why it's so brilliant. You just kind of have to go and see it for yourself. And I've already completely spoiled this if you haven't, so, you know, that's a problem. All the same, though. Anyway, I also want to talk about the first 3 seasons, because the first 3 seasons are different to the fourth. The first 3 seasons are more tightly structured based on the world and this world of, you know, the world behind the walls and what they're hiding from, and the Titans and the mystery behind the Titans. And then in the second half of season 3, when you finally get the answers as to what the Titans are, and you learn about Marley, and you learn about the world beyond the sea and all of that, just that entire, I know it's not a half, but it feels like the first half of the story is fucking masterful, and one of the best payoffs I have experienced in a story. I apologize if I sound hyperbolic, but you've got to understand, it was so satisfying to finally get the answers that I had questions for a decade, and for those answers to be legitimately super interesting. I also really liked, you know, where season 4 went. Obviously it was more focused on Eren as a character turning into a bad guy, and I've got a lot to say on that as well. But like learning about Marley, and the like, it kind of changed into a different genre of anime, but it was really interesting to see, like, what if World War II with kaiju, you know, or maybe not kaiju, but flesh mechs, I don't know. Anyway, here's what I guess is an unpopular opinion, but really, really should not be. Eren Yeager clearly turned into the bad guy. Like, that is the path he was on from the time of somewhere around season 3, but from the moment in season 4 when he killed innocent people in Mali, when he transformed and that building blew up and he told Reiner he was just like him, he stopped being a good guy. Like, it's that easy, you would think, but this guy read the Crunchyroll comments section, and oh my god, the amount of people who could not understand. They were so. If you have any awareness of the Attack on Titan fandom, you will probably be aware of the almost unilateral hatred that people have for Gabby, because Gabby shot Potato Girl. Now listen, I loved Potato Girl. I was distraught when she died, but she was the invader. We had reached a point in the show when moral compasses were, swinging wildly about in all directions, and the main cast had started invading a country, and obviously there's the whole argument about the persecution of their kind that they had learned about. The entire reason that Eren was doing all of this, that is not lost on me. However, that doesn't excuse going and killing people who had nothing to do with any of that. Gabby is a kid in a war, and she was sticking up for her country, which was all she had ever known, a country that is deeply flawed. But oh my god, the amount of people who did not understand where the story was going and just were calling for the blood of this child, those were the people who this story was written for, I think. It was written for all of us, but I really, really hope that by the end of the anime they understood to some degree that Eren wasn't the protagonist by the end, he was the antagonist, okay? Oh, the internet. Also I know at some point it was just a meme and I shouldn't have taken it that seriously, but come on, man. But yeah, the transformation of Eren from protagonist to antagonist was really fun to see. I didn't like in the finale where we saw Armin's buried memory of his conversation with Eren in the pathways. I feel like his morals and his philosophy got a little bit, I don't know how else to say it, but a little bit, I don't want to say it like that. I think there's a trope in anime sometimes where the antagonist will have reasonings for what they're doing, but you can't really piece them together because they don't really make sense. However, there's also a solid argument to be made for the fact that Eren was literally going mad because he was experiencing all of time at once. So, I don't know. But there was some really fun stuff with Eren being heartbroken, like at the start of part 1 of a final episode, when he's initiating the rumbling, and like it flashes back to him like telling those kids that he's sorry because he knows he's going to kill them in the future, and then flash forward to the present day when he is literally killing them. But yeah, I'm not going to ramble on for too much longer about Attack on Titan, because truth be told, I watched most of it at the start of this year. I rewatched part 1 of the finale as I went into part 2 of the finale, and I'm glad I did. But I just want to say I really, really enjoyed Attack on Titan. It had some really interesting things to say, and I think I have some friends who kind of dismiss it as like face value, like trying to shock people with the gruesome violence and the dark nihilism, but there is a point to it, and I kind of always knew there was, and I really enjoyed where it went. So that's it. Oh, one more thing. I have been listening to almost nothing but the soundtrack to Attack on Titan all year long. I don't do Spotify, but my YouTube Music Wrapped, or whatever they call it, is just going to be the Kota Yamamoto Awards. It's going to be ridiculous. The reason I found out about the final episode being on Crunchyroll was because I got a notification on my phone about the final album, the final soundtrack dropping, and I was like, oh my god, that must mean the final episode's out. But I was more excited about the soundtrack than I was about the episode. Anyway, thank you very much for listening to some random guy on the internet talk about what he thought about Attack on Titan. If you had a different take as to the overall meaning of a story, I would very much like to read it if you would like to leave it in the comments section. Remember, if you didn't agree with any of my takes, I'm just some random guy on the internet with different experiences to you in life, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're entirely wrong for having your opinions, which is something that I feel like shouldn't need to be stated, but on the internet maybe does. And if you would like to like this video if you enjoyed it, that would make me feel happy things. and I will see you in whatever I decide to talk about next.